Since the closed beta more than a year and a half ago, there have been a lot of dramatic shifts in Diablo 4 and the discourse around it. From the overwhelming hype, marketing campaigns, and a very successful launch, and record sales, you could assume that the game is doing great. And when looking at the pure financials, it seems to have done so, having raked in over $1 billion as of recording. However, since launch, there have been a lot of criticisms about the game. Blizzard has been slow to address these different issues, and due to that, millions of players have abandoned the title in favor of other games, such as the new Path of Exile. The exodus of streamers and YouTubers has been even greater, with a lot of them either outright abandoning the game, or just making the occasional video that is often critical. And because of this, the discourse is very negative right now. Still, the game is massive, and it has hundreds of thousands of active players still. According to the website active.io, the game still had about 3 million players log in the past 30 days. And while it's true that there was a major holiday and the expansion probably helped a lot, this was a very lackluster season and towards the tail end of it. The game has been worked on a lot, and it has raked in a lot of money, so it seems that it is more and more growing into its own thing, where it is focusing as the fun ARPG for casuals that don't have a lot of time to play. The main target audience seems to be people who log in for just a couple hours a week, maybe once or twice. As one of those players, I actually think the game has improved a lot. Early game progression was fun when it launched, and it has gotten better since then. More of the activities that were locked behind certain world tiers are now available from the beginning, and stuff like itemization, gems, the codex have all become better since Season 4 reworked those, and several endgame bosses and activities from the different campaigns and seasons have been added. If you have the expansion, which was, in my opinion, quite expensive at launch, there is even more endgame content to do in the new added region. But while the game as a whole has gotten quite a bit better, one big aspect, in my opinion, has remained weak, and that is the story. The main campaign, while maybe not amazing, is fun and has some really awesome cinematics and some cool themes throughout, and very good voice acting. It has been a while since I played Diablo 3, but based off of my memory, I'd say that the base campaign for Diablo 4 was actually better. And unfortunately, that has not kept up with the expansion campaign, which in my opinion was a bit weaker than the main one, but still, it was fun. Maybe not enough to actually buy the expansion at full price, but with the Spiritborn and the region, I think it's worth getting it on sale. Just like Diablo 3 and Path of Exile, Diablo 4 is a live service game which uses the seasonal mechanics. So every season, something new comes up, you replay the whole game from the start, and this allows for players to kind of have that fresh feeling, a new experience, and for Blizzard to make money via new cosmetics and the season's pass. Also, it allows them to do small changes, improvements, and build upon the game iteratively. Blizzard announced 4 seasons per year when the game launched, and they also announced that they were using 2 different development teams, where every other season is worked on by their respective team. The first season was received very, very negatively, and considering all the backlash, as well as issues they've had in the seasons past that, I am a bit skeptical if they have the same development structure where they still have these 2 respective teams, but there's nothing that shows that they've changed. So I will assume for this video's purposes that they still maintain that structure. It would also explain a lot because the different seasons, the even, respectively the odd seasons, have some commonalities. Seasons 1 and 3 kind of had the worst seasonal mechanics, or at the very least the least popular ones, but they had some of the best voice acting. While seasons 2 and 4 added in some of the more fun mechanics and reworked the game more impressively, the voice acting was weaker in Season 2 and was pretty pathetic in Season 4. I will say, as an interesting note, that Season 5 was actually really good. The mechanic there was fun, and the voice acting there was probably the best one so far. So we'll see if that same team, if it is the same team, will do a better job of Season 7. Now, speaking of lackluster seasons, we are currently in Season 6, the Season of Hatred Rising. In my opinion, this has been either the worst since Season 3, or potentially Season 1, or arguably of all seasons. With each season release, there are a few different elements to take into consideration. First, there are the new seasonal mechanics. Secondly, there is the seasonal story via quests and voice acting and journals. And finally, there are the overall changes to the game made concurrently with the season. This time, an expansion was released as well, and I understand that the overwhelming amount of support and effort was put into that expansion story, the new class, and the new region. But that has come at a cost to the season itself. And I would make the argument that a lot of the improvements from this season are more due to the expansion than the season itself. If you take the seasonal stuff and put them on their own merits, I think this has been a really, really poor season. The main new things have been the new region and the new class, and those are expansion exclusive. So you can't really rank the season based off of those things. When it comes to the endgame content, all of it was created prior to this season, and while it has been reworked a bit, I would argue that the overall major reworks are more due to the expansion than to the season itself, just like how Reaper of Souls from Diablo 3 reworked a lot of Diablo 3. Because of this, I would argue that the contributions from this season are only the seasonal mechanic, which is a pretty lackluster one, as well as the story. And the story is non-existent. The Glorious Season 6 quest line is a single quest introducing the Realm Walkers, which is the seasonal mechanic, as well as a few journals by the voice actors from the Nahantu region, kind of being a bit of an ad for the expansion. And that's it. That is quite literally it. The season story is often not the main focus for a lot of players. A lot of people just skip it or disregard it, and it is even less prioritized by, for example, the streamers who play for hours and hours and hours. Others just enjoy it for what it is, but maybe don't put much weight into it. For many, it's just a little bit of extra that might make the game just a little bit better, but it's not the main draw or appeal. It's the different changes to the mechanics. But for me, as a very single-player focused person who really loves the different stories of Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 1, I feel like this is a shame, like a huge shame. While everyone has been focusing on what I think are more important points, the mechanics of the game itself, the gameplay loops, and it's very important that those are fixed, I feel like the discourse has kind of forgotten about the lackluster season stories. And I would love it if that changed. The first 3 seasons had these cool stylistic openings, these trailers, which were really awesome, and that was cut for season 4, and it hasn't returned yet. Another thing that has been cut has been the amazing voice acting. Seasons 1 and 3 had some really good voice acting, 2 was a bit more lackluster, but 5 was fantastic. Really, really good. But for this season, there has been basically none of that. And that kind of demotivates you to actually do the season story. Another thing that is missing is some of the quests. This season had a few journals, previous seasons have had them, but there they've had quests that kind of keep track of those things, and this time it didn't even have a quest tracker, and that is incredibly disappointing. Like, how difficult would it be to create a simple quest tracker and maybe a little bit of flavor text? I mean, an hour? And the bar has just been lowered in that regard over and over again, and it's really, really a shame. I was surprised at Season 5's secondary story and how good it was, and how great the voice acting was. And it actually made me pretty hyped for this season. Now, I knew the expansion was coming out, so I figured more weight would be put on it, but I really did hope that it would build on the previous season story, or at the very least be a bit better than Season 4. And instead, it did the exact opposite, and it was the worst one by far. A few dialogues that, don't really mean a lot, don't explain anything about the Realm Walkers, as well as a few journals from the voice actors who did some of the characters in the expansion region, and that's it? Like, really? This from the company that made over $1 billion from this franchise couldn't cobble together a few writers and a couple voice actors to add in just a little bit more? Now, I thought it was important to mention this now towards the tail end of Season 6, because Season 7 is supposed to have a story, and it would be fun to compare the lack of a story now to whatever comes out. My hope is, because Season 5 had such great voice acting, if it's the same team, that they can deliver something even better than Season 5, but we'll see. Them not having a cinematic, I think, is a bit of a worrying sign. A side note that I want to mention is that there is still no way to save the journals to access them later, and that frustrates me so much. Diablo 3 had this great system where every single journal that you found was kept in like a ledger, and you could listen to them whenever you wanted. In fact, you would find them out of order, and you'd have to kind of piece together all the journals. And they added a little thing in Season 3 where all the journals from Sultan Kul, which were really cool, were actually then collected in the Construct Hub. But why not just add a journals list? It would create another incentive to play the different seasons, because you'd want to collect all the journals from all the different ones so you could compare. I think that's a huge loss, and I do wonder, considering how many difficulties they've had with creating like a good stash, that maybe it would be too difficult for them. But I think it should be a requirement, and I really hope that other people, sound the alarm and start demanding it, because when players have been criticizing the game, they have actually, sometimes begrudgingly and sometimes slowly, made changes to improve it. So if we bring that up, I think that we could maybe get that implemented. Because it's a real shame. Some of those journals are really cool, and the only way for people who haven't played it or who want to revisit it is to go through YouTube videos. And I don't think that should be a requirement, even though I am one of the YouTubers who have been uploading content that actually has all the journals. So if you do want to see all the season stories, I actually have them on my channel. I think I'm the only content creator that actually did seasons 4, 5, and 6, but I could be wrong. I digress. The season stories are a unique opportunity to have fun with Diablo 4. It's an opportunity to do world building and do deep dives into these different regions that Blizzard has created. And you could also create these seasonal stories that have overarching themes that connect to each other. Or if you want, you could have one-offs and just kind of lean into like the dark setting, have some dark humor in there. You could have a lot of fun with this. You could experiment. And it feels instead like they've been doing the safe, predictable stuff, and they haven't really been experimenting. Like, you could make something very crazy and it just lasts for one season. Like, it's going to be gone in a few months anyway, so why not kind of go balls to the wall, just try stuff? I think that my biggest gripe is that Blizzard is squandering this opportunity. They're being cowards, they're not putting in the effort, and I think this game could just be so much more. It seems like Path of Exile is really nailing the boss mechanics and the deep systems, so I would wish that Diablo really pivots to the casuals and just creates lots of fun, interesting stories. That seems like a very natural thing that they could do that is more appealing to casual players. I hope that more people talk about this and voice their criticism, because as I've said before, they do actually change things. In the end, Diablo 4 remains a game that has incredible potential and it has improved a lot. But the execution has been uneven, especially when it comes to the seasonal storytelling. While the gameplay has seen some significant improvements, the lack of engaging and meaningful narrative, I think, is a huge wasted opportunity, and I really hope this changes. With Season 7 just a few days away, it will be interesting to see if they actually return to form, or if this is another disappointment. I definitely want to do a deeper dive and a retrospective into the different seasons and how they compare and how the game has changed throughout them, and I will probably be doing so after the 10th season has been concluded. Blizzard is a massive company that's made a lot of money from this game, and there is still a big player base for it, and they have a lot of tools and talent that I believe could make the stories a highlight of the seasons, not just an afterthought. And I think if more people talk about this, discuss this, voice their criticisms, we might potentially make them change this. Let's hope they prove me wrong in the next few seasons. If you are new to my channel, I have played through every single Diablo 4 season so far, and in addition to the seasonal playlists, I also have a story compilation playlist where I have the entire story from each single season, just the story. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out. I will be playing Season 7, but that might come out a little bit delayed because I have other series in the works. If you enjoyed this video, let me know. I really appreciate the comments and the feedback. What are your opinions about the stories? Do you think Blizzard has the ability to actually improve upon this, or do you think Season 6 will kind of be the baseline? Do let me know in the comments down below. I really appreciate the comments. Subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.